Welcome to a new episode of My Dear Kitchen in Helsinki podcast. My guest today is Anna Nyman, a wild food foraging enthusiast who is also sharing her knowledge about foraging professionally with workshops, lectures, and books. Anna and I talked about her professional activities, foraging in general in Finland, foraging as an activity creating communities, and more. You can find more about Anna's work on www.foraginginfinland.com in English or on www.annanyman.fi in Finnish. We hope you enjoy our discussion and we hope to hear your thoughts on the social media platforms about Anna's question in the end. As always, special thanks to my dear friend Ufuk Evcimen for the sound editing. Hello, Anna, and thank you for accepting to do this interview on this very fine summer day. Now, today we're going to talk about wild food foraging. And the way I want to talk about it, first, you're doing it professionally, you have a brand, you have activities and services. I first want to talk about your story and your business. And then foraging in Finland in general, and then foraging as an activity, and then close the interview with that. So, but before we do that, can you introduce yourself a little, your educational and maybe your professional background before all this and so on?
Yes, I'm happy you asked me to this interview. Thank you for that. It's always a pleasure to talk about foraging and these things around nature things. So my name is Anna Nyman. I'm a biologist and I'm also a wild food instructor. And also now at the moment I'm studying herbalism as well, because I feel that the herbal medicine is a huge thing that we are not in Finland like practicing at the moment so that much. So that I feel it's so important. I used to work as a researcher for over 10 years as a biologist. But then I was in the lab. I was doing totally different things. I was researching the effect of environmental things on our genes, so epigenetics. So that's all, of course, all the toxins and the foods and all the things are all our thoughts as well. But food was one big thing for me to research about. Mm-hmm. So, and I was really interested in like nutrient dense food. Mm-hmm. So, and then at one point I found out that we have all these amazing plants growing around us and no one talks about them. So that was something like blew my mind totally. Mm-hmm. So I studied at university nutrition as well, and as a minor, but no one, at least in my studies I had, no one talked about this. Mm-hmm. And I was always, I consider that these are just weeds. Mm-hmm. So actually dandelion was for me the gate opener. Mm-hmm. In that way. I found an article about dandelion, mm-hmm. and then I started to understand more about all the other things as well we can find. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was really into these exotic superfoods. My cupboard was filled with really also bad tasting, like these kind of superfoods, these powders, which was really popular. This was about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then I almost like threw them away. I was like, no, this is so wrong. We are like bringing these things all around the world to here. Of course, they're good things. I'm not claiming that. But then there was just something in me that happened that I wanted to get the foods myself. Mm-hmm. So that was a really big thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and now I'm studying herbalism, so mm-hmm. That's the way from the lab to the nature in a way.
Okay, so this is how you got interested in also, foraging this food yourself, and but then how did you decide to make it a full-time profession?
I think that happened a little bit later. Actually, I could say that the 2 last years I've been home with my 2 twin boys, For 3 years now. So they're now starting daycare this summer. But at that point, I just I had the time to think about what is it that I really want to do in my life? What is important? Mm-hmm. What makes me happy? What makes me smile? What is something that that really gets me going, and a thing that doesn't feel like work. So that was something, and I actually started to do it more and more during when the boys were still small babies. And of course, I've been having these foraging walks for over 7 years, but I think the last couple of years have been the thing that has now made me get the confidence to start to do this real, because I always felt that because it was only a side thing, I had all other projects, all work things, so there was so little time to connect with the plants, to learn about the plants. So now when I had some extra time with the boys at home, so then I think I feel that now I have the confidence. Now I know enough. Now I know what I want to do, and I've been having time to plan and these kind of things. So
yeah, well, to be able to do something full time that you also are so passionate about, and not feeling like it as work is really important. And that's also more or less my relationship with my food entrepreneurship. So I can relate to that. But then, can you talk about your professional work related to foraging, your activities, services, workshops, and so on?
I have written a book, but it's in Finnish. So that's like a big thing. And I didn't do it alone. I had friends with me. We did it together, all really interested in wild foods. And then my plan is actually now to start to write also on foraging book for kids. That's also in Finnish. But then now at this time I'm doing the foraging walks and teaching about mushrooms and wild herbs and berries. Then I have webinars that I do. Then I have ebooks that I do, and then online courses. That's something I really want to focus on during the winter months, because then it's snow here in Finland, so that's not much to do outdoors at that point. So then that's when I want to really share the knowledge online more, and then during the summertime outdoors.
Are these lectures all in Finnish, or are there English ones as well?
I have at this point most of those are in Finnish, but at some point I really hope to do in English as well.
Now, I got to know you from the foraging walk, wild herb foraging walk we had in Mustikkamaa less than a month ago, on 11th of May. And I really liked it a lot. I mean, I did foraging before, mushrooms and berries, but never herbs. So for me, it was 100% new. And I really enjoyed how fluent it all was, and how knowledgeable you were. And also you made it really fun at the end as well. And it was all really fun to do it with people that I didn't know. I mean, like my friend came along with me, but then again, so many other people as well. And I highly recommend people, if they're interested, to join. And it was really great that you had it. I mean, it's hard to find these kind of things in English as well. So because I joined the herb walk, the thing that I wanted to ask also for people who are maybe interested, to get their attention, can you talk about some of the uses of wild herbs and their health benefits, for example?
There are so many. If you think about in Finnish nature, so we have about 250 different plants we can use in some way. And then addition to that, we can do like smudge sticks from plants. We can clean the house with some plants and their essential oils. And then externally use them in many things. So where to start? For example, let's say nettle. that's like something that grows all around us, and it's so healthy. It's really cleansing herb. It gives us a bunch of nutrients like iron, calcium, magnesium, manganese. So that's I mean, that's why I love wild herbs, because they're so accessible for everyone. And they grow at all the places, because if you compare with mushrooms again, then you need to go a little bit further away, and you find them here and there, and if you're lucky you might find something before someone else have been taking them. But with wild herbs we don't need to like compete with people, because they are, especially the most common ones. So the health benefits internally are amazing with many of those, and I have actually many of the people who have been on my foraging walks, for example, tell that they get like better, they get like what do you say, they get like ease for menstrual cramps with the lady's mantle plant, for example, or then using nettle to get the iron levels up. So that's a really good response I get some from some people. But then again, we have all the other things as well. We have the good bacteria that are growing not growing, are living on the plants and living here in the wild nature. So that's a really important thing. We have the microbiome in our body, which is nowadays quite sadly not as like what do you say? Not as many species of these microbiomes. I have now like the 3 languages in my head and everything is coming at the same time. But microorganisms, yeah. So I mean, the thing is, the food what you're eating now from the supermarket, it's all really clean. Not of the good bacteria anymore. And one of the reasons we are sick and we have our immunity is not working as it should be. So one part of it is the microorganism we get as well. And then of course the amazing benefits of going out to the nature and just to be there, to breathe in the fresh air. And we all know that if you go out to the nature, it's like 15 minutes and your blood pressure goes down and your blood sugar levels are better, and all these aspects. So it's such an holistic thing and good thing for our health in many ways. So, but if you think about, and then we have all these things we can just eat and enjoy and have a good cooking, and then all those medicinal plants as well. I mean, when I'm now studying more herbalism, my eyes are opening more and more again, that we have these things that we can all use a little bit to just like balance our well-being before we get sick. So that's, and then if we have something small, if we have a headache or if we have some muscle pain, so we can use the herbs. And the one good thing also for the herbs is that if you use herbs as medicine in a right way, in a right portion, there are no side effects or very little side effects compared to the traditional medicine. So as you know, if you use one medicine for a long period of time, most likely you're going to develop some kind of side effects, and then you might need some other medicine. So this is a more like softer approach. And the herbs is also that we can use them also to support if, for example, let's say if we're using we have some medicine or have some disease, we could use them as a support if we know that they're not mixing with the medicine. So they're always a good support in whatever situation we are in our life. So that's why I love the herbs that much.
Yeah, I think it's very important what you said, especially about how nutritious it is, all these things that are growing in the wild. Compared to most of the things we find in the supermarkets these days, especially due to industrial agriculture and the soil left without so many nutrients these days. And the tomatoes we ate today are not the same tomatoes we ate, let's say, 20 years ago, because of lesser and lesser amount of nutrients and everything. So I think a very good point. But back to your professional work with foraging, you said that you're planning to write a book for kids next. What other exciting future projects do you have? Do you have anything else in mind? Even in maybe right now, just planning.
I think when you're really excited about the topic, then it's like every day something pops out. Hey, I could try that. Oh, I could collaborate with those people. So at this point, I have some collaborations, for example, coming up with like tourism companies. So that would be one new thing, which is I'm really excited. And then all these online communities we could build. So that's something I really want to do. Of course, I don't want to only be online. That's never my goal, because I want people to go together and with me to the nature, because that's something I really love, and that's like my fuel. When I go and have a foraging walk, I feel like so happy after that one. But I think an online course that will be for a longer period of time is something I'm planning. And then also, like, if I think of this basic foraging work, for example, with mushrooms now coming up, so I'm thinking about maybe having a little bit of a longer course that you have, for example, 3-4 times we go with the group together, because now it's just one time we go with the same group. So I think that would be a really amazing thing, and give a little bit extra to the people, and they would learn better because they go once, so they learn something. But if you will go many times and you have the same people around, then I think that would be really beneficial. So, but yeah, I think I hope books, a lot of books. I love books myself, so I hope I'm able to write books in Finnish, but also in English, maybe Swedish as well. Swedish is my mother tongue. So I don't know, many things, and
yeah,
virtual games. I mean, there's like endless amount of things we could do. So that's also, as an entrepreneur, so that's a problem sometimes, because you need to focus at one time, maybe two or 3 things, not like 10 things, because that's too stressful at that point. So let's see.
This kind of continuous more than one, at least, gatherings with the same group, doing this kind of walks or workshops together is really interesting. But I must say, even after just one foraging walk we had, I can now recognize wherever I go. Okay, I mean, I can't keep the names so much in my head, but I know what it is. And I'm also working at least once a week in Tuusula with Omama Food Co-op, and there I can also see, okay, I know this herb and this one and that one. Yeah. So it was really, it's really fun and exciting for me to be able to recognize these.
And
I can only imagine what would happen if it were more than one, like continuous. And I would just be able to eat anything and everything.
Yeah, that's really nice that you say that, because that's like one of my points, that people, when they start to walk around, they start to look at, oh no, there's so many things we could eat and use, and I never knew this. And then all of a sudden you realize that you're walking on food, that there are food all around, and medicine as well. So that's something, it's really fun. And that usually happens on the foraging walks. Just in the beginning, people are, no, I can't stand here because there's food here. So that's something really, really amazing.
So now if we continue about foraging in general in Finland, so what are the rules of foraging in Finland, and especially this term that I heard for the first time in your walk, every man's rights? What is that?
Every man's rights. It should be maybe also every woman's right, but or maybe just everyone's right. And we should change the man from there to keep it equal. But anyways, that's an amazing thing we have in Finland. I know that some other countries has it as well. So basically, you're allowed to go and forage food from wherever. You don't need to ask the landowner's permission. But if you would forage spruce tips or leaves or roots or leaves from like these wooden stemmed plants, then you would need the landowner's permission. But otherwise, all these grass, weeds, all these, we can go, and mushrooms and berries as well. We can go to just drive or take the bus somewhere and hop off and go and find and take what we find. So that's really amazing. I know that some countries have, for example, that they need to have some kind of permission to go to a nature area, and then even pay for something that they take, for example, mushrooms. So this is a really special thing we have in here. And of course, we need to respect if there's houses around that people are living. So it's not the idea to go on someone's, like in someone's garden, but just to keep a nice distance from the house. So then you're allowed to go anywhere. And if you would like to forage, those you need the landowner's permission. So that's also a possible thing. You can find out the landowner and you can call them. Hey, can I come and take your spruce tips? Is it okay? Can I take your dandelion roots? And usually people are like, "Wow, yes, fine." Like Finnish people own a lot of land. There are many people who have big forests. So usually it's really fine to take for home use at least.
So how widespread do you think foraging in Finland is? And where do you think foraging stands in the local food system in Finland? I guess what I'm trying to ask is foraging more of a leisure activity, or are there, do you think, people who depend solely or mostly on foraged foods? So what's the situation?
I don't think at this day there are people who would solely only forage all their food. Of course, there's been some people living in the woods and maybe cultivating some food and foraging the rest and hunting some. That sounds something amazing life, but it's more like a leisure kind of thing in Finland at this point. So, but usually people forage mushrooms and berries, are really familiar with those, but people don't forage herbs that much. And those who forage mushrooms and berries are usually a little bit older generation, because they have still the culture of foraging still. But then now we have bigger cities coming, and people living in the cities, they don't live so near to the nature. So that's why herbs are really good, like step towards foraging and this kind of self-sufficiency as well, because they are near the cities as well. But then
So maybe then the new generation are yet to be more maybe active.
But maybe I think it's the last, maybe let's say 5 years, it's starting to be more and more popular also to forage all the things, mushrooms, berries and herbs. So it's starting to be like a really, really popular thing more and more. So that's I'm really happy of. But then after the war, when there wasn't food, then we needed to go to get the food. So for example, in Helsinki, the capital, the nettle didn't grow like bigger than this, like really 10 centimeters, because all people were foraging nettles. There was no food. So that's kind of tells a little bit how the times were then. So now we have available, we can go to the supermarket and buy whatever. And we can also buy wild herbs and mushrooms and berries in the shop. But then again, in deep down, Finns are forest people. We have that connection, even though we would live in the city and we would have this, not that deep connection at this point, but we all have it there inside of us. I believe that. So.
And as a foreigner who came from a big city, which is Istanbul, full of concrete, for me, just even if I don't go and stay in a mökki, like a cottage or something, but mostly stay in Helsinki and maybe have a little trip around, but mostly go to parks, or Mustikkamaa has been our walk-in route since the pandemic with my friend, and also just some little forests around the city, like Keskuspuisto or something like that. even in Helsinki, especially when you come from somewhere like Istanbul, your relationship with nature really gets stronger, and the idea of and the foraging for me has been interesting to find out, and I got encouraged by my Finnish friends as a new thing for me. Even though I remember as a kid I used to, I think, forage berries with my siblings when I went to the countryside, but that's like a very small fun event it was. But for people who are maybe interested but don't know so much, living in Finland, about what they can forage, and also for listeners who are outside Finland but want to know a little bit, are curious what's going on in Finland, what are some of the most commonly and easily found mushrooms, berries, and herbs? But what are some of the hardest and maybe the most precious ones to find?
I'm thinking about the horn of plenty mushroom, which is for me at least a really one of my favorites. And it's difficult to find because it's black. It looks like a rotten leaf or something. So you really need to go there like down to find them. So that's maybe a little bit more difficult to find. But I don't know, at some of my foraging walks, people find them. So it's not impossible. So, and then if you think about mushrooms and most the popular areas, like in the national parks and those, so usually most of the people, they forage chanterelles. So then it's difficult to find them there because all people have already taken them. So that's and they're of course really, really good. So from mushrooms, with the herbs, it's easier because usually we don't need to fight for them and be early or anything. We find them. With the mushrooms and the berries, then we need to be early on to find them. For the berries, that would maybe be then we would need to go to Lapland to find cloudberry. So that's maybe a really amazing berry there. Then crowberry, that's one of my favorite as well, and then that's not that like common in at least those areas I'm walking. It's not impossible to find it, but still it's a little almost blackberry, a really, really good and healthy one. But that's maybe those that I come up with at this point.
Yeah, and especially with mushrooms, I know, for example, there are people who have their secret mushroom places that they never would like to share with other people, especially if it's something that a really small amount and really precious that you can't find anywhere. I like these stories a lot within the communities, but of course, when you're talking about foraging in Finland, I think it's good to talk about foraging in relation to Finnish cuisine. So how significant is foraged wild food in traditional Finnish cuisine?
It is important, of course, and maybe especially the berries, the lingonberries and the bilberries, those are something that I would say most of the Finns eat like during the year, many liters. I don't remember the amount. Somewhere I read how many kilos per year a Finn eats bilberries and lingonberries. That was quite much, but that's really a part of the cuisine. Mushrooms, yes. I think chanterelles and yellowfoot chanterelles are really, really important as well. But they're seasonal foods that people go and forage them and eat them during the autumn, but then again we could also preserve more of them, so we could be self-sufficient in those. So eat them all year, and we can buy from the supermarkets. From the herbs, I think nettle is the only one that it's part of a Finnish cuisine. It's the nettle soup that's maybe something every grandmother have done to their grandchildren, more or less. So I think that's the basis. So nettle, and then chanterelles, and the lingonberries and bilberries.
Yeah.
But there are many more.
Yeah.
But that's like the most common ones that people use.
Mm-hmm. And then there's, of course, there are new approaches to Finnish cuisine. I mean, there are chefs trying new things, and not just Finnish cuisine. Actually, there is this kind of awakening of Nordic cuisine in the past decade or so, more or less. What do you think about these new approaches? Do you find any? I mean, I myself, I live in Kallio, and very near there was this vegan fine dining place that I cannot pronounce the name of, Wild or something like that. Guy who did this solely on foraged foods, and it was so interesting to also just listen to him talking so passionately about the food that he experimented with. But what do you think about these new approaches to Finnish cuisine, or new exciting things happening with chefs in Finland and foraged foods?
That's a really important thing. I think that the chefs are one of the big reasons that we have started to use, like every basic person as well use, because usually when something new comes, it's first the chefs. They make these amazing foods, and they can give, like, bring out the flavors in a really nice way. So we have, for example, as you made the Wild restaurant, there's Ossi Paloneva and then Sami Talberg, which are both really have been doing amazing work to spread the knowledge about wild herbs, mushrooms as well, but with herbs, because that's something we have totally needed. We have needed that we would learn again to use the herbs. So chefs have been doing an amazing thing by bringing those to restaurants, but because that's easier for people to taste the new flavors when there's someone serving them. And compared if you take your own book and you try to make it yourself and try to find them. But that's the first step. You go to a nice restaurant, you get this amazing food, and then hey, wow, and what is this? I want to learn to do this. So that's really nice that we have these chefs that are doing this work.
So if we just now talk about foraging, let's say as an activity in general, without any specific place, is it possible to over forage? And what are your recommendations for people so they don't forage too much or more than they need it? And maybe what are some sustainable ways or methods of foraging?
I usually say at my foraging walks that don't take too much and don't be greedy when you're foraging, because so many times I've heard people, oh no, I still have these nettles from last year. Now I need to use them up before the new nettles come. So and I'm also been doing that at some point. I find these spruce tips in my freezer. I'm, oh no, like sometimes we just forget. But so we need a little bit trying to figure out how much we are using all these wild herbs. What was your question?
What are sustainable ways?
Sustainable, yes, good. So that's a really important thing. And then depending on which herb we are foraging. So for example, the livelong, which is something that grows really slowly, and it's a food of an endangered butterfly larva. So then we need to know what we are picking. We need to know and realize that these plants are part of something, as part of a system. So if we take from there, we need to know not to take too much and always leave the nature as no one was there. So that's really important. So we can't, that's why everyman's roots, the rates are really good, because we can't rip, for example, the roots.
Yeah.
So and break some branches or anything like that. We should just like quietly go there, and then it should look like no one been there.
Mm-hmm.
So sustainability is a really important thing, and then of course we have some species which are really rare and endangered. So that's why we need to educate ourselves a little bit before we go and go out to the nature. So we know exactly what we are taking. and we never take it all. Even though it will be nettle, we never take it all. We take it just when it's nettle, then we make you take maybe half of it maximum. But then for the other plants, maximum 1/3 of that little area. I mean, like so because that's a small ecosystem at that place. So you could, if you take it all, you destroy something. You probably don't know it, but some bug or something might like to live there. So that's why we need to take just a little bit and just don't take too much. That's a problem, I think, because it's so fun to do. It's so fun to pick those. It's so, but then you could pick for some friend or something that you don't leave them there to mold in your freezer or fridge or cupboard.
Yeah, I think it's really important point that you said, especially about knowing about, like, educating yourself what you are picking, not just its, let's say, knowing about its use or its health benefit or something, but know where it stands in the whole system and in the whole ecosystem. Is it, as you said, the food of a larva, or if it's the home of something? So it's very important to know also what they are in the system. So that's a very important point. But then, well, as I said, for example, when I came to Finland from Istanbul to Helsinki, well, in general, I got more interested in nature, as I am closer to nature now rather than concrete. But how can foraging activity, foraging of wild foods, change somebody's relationship with nature?
It changes, because when you start to pick food for yourself, you realize you don't want to destroy the nature, first of all. And then when you start to forage food, you start to want to know, what is that then? What is that then? And then all of a sudden you're like surrounded about this, with this beautiful energy of plants. And as I said in the beginning, it for the health benefits, for lowering the blood sugar and blood pressure. So that's really one thing.
Yeah, and I want to add my idea as well, that when you are closer to nature, and even when you are, foraging food and not just, walking around and enjoying nature, you start some kind of an understanding that nature is not just there for us humans to feed or to be there, but it is part of us. So I think it's a big change than, okay, everything is for me or for us, but it's not there to serve us. It's part of the whole ecosystem, just like we are.
We are all part of it, yeah. And I have to say one thing. I used to, for many years, I almost had this kind of a burnout, not like a real bad burnout, but I was like really exhausted with studies and work and all this. So, and that was the time I was starting a little bit to know about the plants. And one of my biggest like rescues was, I went to the nature. I just sat there on a rock and looked around the nature and what is there, and took in the energy. So for some people, maybe they don't understand that they are like burnout or exhausted, or they are at that point that they're too tired. But then they, for example, go on a foraging walk, and then they realize, oh, these are so tasty. And then at the same, as a bonus, they get the health benefits of being connected to nature, because that's also something when we are living now in the cities. So that's like a big thing, that I think the stress and all this is bigger because we are not spending time in the nature as we used to.
Yeah, and especially in the last year, since the last year with the COVID situation and big lockdowns in many people, I think I came to appreciate it even more, to be so close to nature, either to do any foraging, but also just to walk around. I mean, when people, I hear in all kinds of big cities in all around the world, because of the pandemic, being locked inside their apartments, whereas we could, while being, again, still careful, of course, of our distances with people, still even at the highest point, we could still at least go and have some fresh air, and that's very important and good to appreciate.
Yeah. And I think if you think about when the pandemic started, so I believe everything happens for a reason. So if you think about humanity, so if you want to think about the good things that has come from this, so is that people has started to go to nature, and they also started to look inside what they want, look inside what's important for them, and then find a nature connection that we have maybe lost. So that's
true. But then foraging is something that you can do by yourself, or you can do with your friends. And I have also a lot of friends who ask every now and then, okay, this weekend I'm going to this place to do mushroom foraging. Anyone wants to come, and so on. But then can then foraging bring people together and create a community? And what would such a community be like? And are there such communities also maybe that you can recommend, I mean, for people who don't have any friends to forage with?
Yeah. If you think about, for example, Slow Food Helsinki, which is in Helsinki, is really active. Of course, they have also other activities than foraging, but they have a really strong community. So I'm hoping at some point we would also have a similar strong community with foragers as well. And something it's been really amazing that people who have been on my foraging walks, they exchange numbers. And then after that, they're like, let's go. And I also have this private Facebook group for those people who have been on my foraging walks. So then their people are also like find each other online. So, but I think that's, and especially for foreigners who come to Finland, because if you're a Finn, maybe you have a grandmother you can ask that what is this, so that, but then if you're coming from totally other country with totally other nature, so then the community part is a really important thing. And actually a big part of my students, as I could call them, are foreigners. So that's, I'm really happy that they are finding the way to nature and I can help them. So and maybe someday build a community with like let's say monthly activities or this kind of meetings. So when we go together, because foraging is always better when you go with someone, because then you can, someone remembers what is this, and the other one remembers, and then we can teach each other. And that's also something really important when I have my foraging walks, and I really want that people start to teach their friends and family as well, so that we can share this knowledge, so that everyone could use the herbs and berries and mushrooms.
Yeah, this sharing knowledge is really important. And I mean, of course, I love learning also from books or from, I don't know, courses and stuff, but to this direct knowledge sharing and learning, especially on the spot, is really, of course, it's also for me what fits to such a thing, but also keeps maybe the relationships and the community itself a very dynamic community. Well, these are all my questions. Do you have any final words or comments? And also, what is a question that you would like to ask our listeners to think further after this episode?
Maybe one question that everyone could maybe ask themselves is that what is stopping you for going out to the nature and connect with nature? Yeah. So, because I know that we can come up with a bunch of reasons why, but truly, why don't we go just more? And if you think about the wild foods, so we don't need to be like a professional chef. We can just go and nibble on some and take some here and there. So what is stopping you? That is maybe a question.
Yes, good to think about. So I repeat, what is stopping our listeners from going to foraging? Unless they are living only in the middle of concrete. So then I don't have anything to say. But at least for friends in Finland, I think.
Yeah.
But so thanks for this interview, and I'm going to give the name of your, like the link to your website in the introduction. But is there anything, you are on Facebook, as you said, you have a Facebook group. What else do you have? You have Instagram.
Yes, yeah, I have Instagram, which I'm maybe the most active on, and then I have the private group on Facebook, and then this Facebook page as well, Foraging in Finland, and then I have my web page, foraginginfinland.com.
And your Instagram name is, one more time?
Foraging with Anna.
Foraging with Anna. Okay, great. Yeah. Yes, thanks a lot, and good luck with your future projects and the rest. And I hope I will be able to at least join one more foraging walk in somewhere else. Maybe this time mushroom walk or something.
Mushrooms, yeah, that's mushroom season coming soon.
yeah. And I can only recognize what's its English name? Suppilovahvero.
Yeah, yellowfoot chanterelle.
So I can only recognize this so far. So maybe I'll recognize one more time. And yeah, okay. But good luck and thanks for the interview.
Thank you for being invited.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to know more about the blog behind this podcast, check out www.mydearkitcheninhelsinki.com and find it also on Instagram and Facebook. Have a delicious week.